Today I'm going to be demonstrating a surreal painting. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind LaCree Fine Art. Today I am going to be demonstrating this surreal painting, should get out of the way so you can see it, of a whale swimming through a forest. The supplies that I used are listed below in the video description. If you are supporters over on Patreon, the 1-hour version of this tutorial is available for you guys now, so make sure to head over and check that out. Now let's get on to this tutorial. I am working on a Fredrix Pro Series Belgian linen canvas for this one. Really smooth, which makes blending super easy. The same thing with detail, really easy to do on this painting. I've blocked everything in with raw umber. I used a spray bottle to mist water just to get some texture in that background to start building this up. Now, with this painting, I didn't have a set reference photo I was going with. Normally, I will design everything in Photoshop first. I didn't know where I was going with it, so I'm just blocking everything in loosely. I'm going to airbrush over this and adjust a lot of things as I go. So once I got that raw umber in and that was all dry, I went ahead and started layering my color on top. Now, I am not mixing any white in with my color because I want this to be very translucent. I'm fading from purple to this turquoise color, which is phthalo green and phthalo blue, over into the green and then into the brown. Now I'm dabbing in some of the leaves for the trees and some tree trunks. All of this is going to get softened way out later on with the airbrush. Blocking in a few more of the sections with leaves. Now technically, I didn't need to do most of this because I did cover so much with the airbrush, but again, I didn't really know where I was going with this. I knew I wanted a whale swimming through the forest. That was the extent of the planning that I did. So I just started painting. I used the airbrush to get rays of light, and we'll come back to that later on. I just loosely blocked them in. Blocked in the whale. Now I'm going to get started with softening out this background. I'm airbrushing, essentially just airbrushing various sizes of dots to get the look that I want here. Dots and some with squiggles. But it's really very basic. You don't have to be good at airbrushing to get this look at all. Getting some shading in there. Now I'm coming back through with white airbrush paint. This is the Createx, and I added a bunch of dots and then the rays of light. Now I put the rays of light over the whale, even though I knew I still needed to paint the whale. That way, once the whale was in, it looked like the rays of light were going behind him and my lines stayed straight. Had I tried to paint those rays of light in after I'd painted in the whale, there's no way I would have gotten those straight without painting over him. So for the whale, this is black, white, and phthalo blue with a little bit of phthalo green. Now, I wanted him to feel like he was still underwater, not just swimming through a forest. I wanted to combine underwater with the forest. So I've created the rays of light on his back the same way that I would if he were in water. Now I'll come back to him, but I'm going to start blocking in some of these rocks. And I didn't want to put too much detail in any given area until I knew what was going where, because again, I didn't have any great reference. I had a whole bunch of reference photos, but not any single one to where I really knew how this was all going to lay out. So with the rocks, I painted them all black, and then I've used a stiff round brush and I'm dabbing in green. I'm going to do about 3 or 4, maybe 5 layers of different shades of green in order to get the look of the moss on the rocks. I want to make sure that I'm leaving some of that black showing through. That's very important. I don't want to just cover them all with green. I'm going to paint some tree trunks in the background behind the whale, some that are up closer. Because I painted over the tree trunks that I had previously done when I did the blurry background, I lost all of that. And so it was starting to lose the feel of the forest. So I'm going to throw a few more of those in up close. I've done a little bit of shading, not too much. Now I'm going to do the branches and then individual leaves that will layer over the whale, which helps him feel more like he's a part of the scene and not just floating in front of it. You can see I've overlapped some of those over his back. And a little bit more detail on the whale. And I'm going to glaze that turquoise color on his belly. so that it's not solid white. Now for the water, I've got to get this dark in order for my lighter water ripples to show through. If it's not dark enough, those water ripples won't show at all. Now that that's in there, I can come back through with a really pale blue and white to create these ripples. Remember, when you're painting water ripples, you want to make sure that the majority of the lines are very horizontal. Don't make them all diagonal or lopsided, or it will really mess up the way your water looks. Mine looks lopsided right now just because of the angle of my camera. I've used white paint to pull over for the waterfalls. You've got to make sure that you get the area behind the waterfalls dark in order for that white paint to show up, though. Throw in some trees over here too. Now for the leaves in the tree, I'm going to work a little bit backwards for how I normally do. I'm going to put my lightest leaves in first, and then I will build up darker and darker just because of the way that my light source is. Normally I'll start with darker and build lighter on top, but this time it worked better to flip it around and do the opposite. Light first, then I built my darker greens, then I added a little bit of brown in with that green, and then some black for the darkest portions. I'm going to come back through with rays of light, which I don't think shows on the video, but I did come back through and put more rays of light behind those trees and over the whale. I'm working on the moss again on the background here. I'm going to take little strands of grass in between some of the rocks. I've got to paint this background area dark first so that the strands of grass will show through. And I did paint a tree trunk, but decided that I hated how it looked, so I ended up painting back over that later on, which you don't see in the video. But I just covered it up with grass. More moss on the rocks up front. There are my rays of light. Now I'm going to paint little mushrooms. This helped give me a very sparkly feel, which pulled it back to feeling a little bit more like it's underwater. Even though they're land mushrooms, it made the overall piece have that sparkly feel that I was looking for. Remember, if you're painting something red, you need to paint something light and opaque underneath, like unbleached titanium white or white, in order for that red to show up over the dark greens and blacks. Then when that dries, you can put the red on top of it. Now there are a couple of things that you're really not going to see in this video, so I just want to point them out to you. First are the bubbles. I do have a tutorial. I will have a card pop up here that shows you how to paint water bubbles and water droplets, so check that out. The next thing that I want to point out, if you look closely at the water, notice that I've got these little dots. They're in rows of 3, 4, 5, 6s, right around there, and they lay on the water ripples. And this helps to give that water that sparkly look. So that was one thing that you really didn't see in the video, but they're just little dots on the water ripples. And again, the water droplets or the water bubbles, those I've got the video showing you how to do that. But all of that came together to help it to have this very sparkly, shiny feel. Thanks for watching. Again, if you are supporters over on Patreon, the 1-hour version of this tutorial is available for you now, so make sure to head over and check that out. If you're new to my channel, I have new video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, art Q&A videos every Thursday, and artist vlogs every Saturday. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. All of those social media sites are linked below in the video description where you can keep up with news, my newest work, and see real-time clips of whatever it is I'm currently working on. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I know what you're thinking. I wore this shirt on Saturday's video. I always record every week's videos all on the same day, but normally I change my outfit in between each video so that it doesn't feel like I'm wearing the same thing all week. But I'm not gonna lie. I'm too lazy for that today.